Hello guys, welcome to a new video here in JS Education. My name is Carlos Santana and this is the video number 25 for the course developing a headless CMS with TypeScript and GraphQL. So let's start. Okay, so as always, the first thing we need to do is to update our packages using ncu-u, and I recommend you to use the versions that you are seeing on my terminal so you can avoid any problem. Also, we need to install some new packages on front end. So one is going to be for npm install uuid and moment. And also you need to install the types for the uuid. So you need to do npm install -d add type/uuid like this. Okay, so now let's go to front end, source, app, dashboard, components, content, and you need to create a folder create here. You need to add a folder create inside content, and then you need to create a new file called index.tsx where we are going to add our new component. So this is the component. Basically here what we need to do is get or create values mutation that we will create a little bit later. We also going to create our custom fields and system fields. We need to create those as well. We don't need this right now. We need to get the model. We are going to create a new ID using UUID version 4. We initialize our values and then our system initial values as well. So the thing is that our system fields are going to filter or are going to be filtered from our get model.fields only where the field is system, and the custom fields is basically the ones that are not system fields. In order to initialize our values, we need to do initial values and then field that identifier. Like for each custom field, we need to do this, initialize with nothing or with empty string. And then if it's required, if that field is required, basically we're going to also initialize or require values using this identifier. So for example, if the title is required, then we need to initialize this as false. Remember that when it's true is when it has the error. And then for system fields, we are going to do the same. For the value, we can get the default value if the field has some. If the identifier is created at, basically we are going to get the date using moment.format, and we are going to use this format. If the identifier has an updated at the beginning, so we are not going to initialize that with anything because that's automatically updated on the database when you update a row. Basically, if it's different from ID, then you initialize your system values like this and with the value you are getting here. Now our states, we have all of this: active state, alert, alert type, show alert, values, system values, required, and values, system values, and required are initialized with our initial values, system initial values, required values, etc. We are going to have two actions, save and publish, and this is open is to control a model that we will create. So we need to add the mutation create values mutation. Well, actually this one, I'm going to add this one later to avoid any confusion right now. So let me remove this part here for now. Handle active is going to handle which field is active, like this one. The onChange, when we write something on the title, and if we have on the initial values the slug, then we are going to change the value of the slug. And we do the same for identifiers. So if we have identifiers or slugs, we are going to apply the slug function with the title value. Otherwise, we are just going to set regular values for the others fields. In the handle submit, we need to get empty values, and those are, because the thing is that right now this is dynamic creation, right? So we don't know, like, for example, in the other models that we have or the other Spark forms that we use, we already know which keys are required or which fields. But those ones in here, we need to get it with object.keys on the required values. So in there, we will know the array of elements that needs to be validated. Also, this is uploaded. We don't need it for now. It's like to upload files, but we are going to do that later. If we get empty values, then basically we set the required errors for those empty values. If the action is save, we are going to turn on the saving loading. If not, we are going to load the publish, because we only have two actions, publish and save. After 2 seconds, we remove them, and then we initialize our ID with the new ID. The status is, if action is saved, then we are going to save as a draft. If it's published, then it's going to be saved as a published. The created add and updated add is going to have a moment format, like the actual date. This is file, we don't need this right now. We are going to add that later. And then we need to do an object.keys values to get all the names of the fields. And then do a for each, right? So we're going to get a field identifier on each one. So then basically a value field, we get it from getModel.fields.find. So you need to find that looking for the identifier. And then the entry values, in here, the entry is gonna be the new ID that we generate with UUID. The field ID, we need to get it using the value field, because remember that in the last video we inserted some rows, but remember that the field ID needs to be there to know to which value is related, right? And which entry. So that's why we need to find the field by identifier and then get the ID of that field. And then the value basically is you get it from values and the identifier, field identifier. So you just run create values mutation, passing the variables with the entry values. Remember that this is an array, that's why it's a push here. So we are pushing each value to the entry values array. And if everything is correct, basically, okay, this one, all the file thing, I'm going to remove that part for now to avoid confusion. So the message, if the action is saved, is going to see in the alert saved or published. And then here we set the alert. And then the set system values, we are going to set our system values, which is the ID with the new ID that we generated. The created add comes from values, the updated add, and the status. And this wait for, this one we can remove it right now. So this handle after create or edit entry model it's gonna be a model that once we create or edit something, is going to open a model. For example, if you just create a new entry, it's going to open a model and will say, okay, you created this entry successfully. What do you want to do next? Create a new one, edit it, or go to the list of entries. But right now we don't need this, so I'm going to remove this part. And then in our main layout, we add our custom fields with all these props. Action create, active custom fields, get model, handle active, required. So all the heavy like logic and the renders are inside these components. So that's why I break it into parts to be more easy to digest. This is open for now. I'm going to remove that. And we pass all these props. So that's it for this component. Next, we need to create another folder on content called custom fields. And then inside, you need to create custom fields.scss. So that's gonna be the styles. Let me copy them here. Okay, so those are the styles for the custom fields. So you can take a look here and just, I mean, if you cannot copy them like on the video, remember that those codes are on the repository, so you don't need to worry like if you cannot copy this like quickly. And later I'm going to show you like how it's going to look. Okay, so now let's create our index inside custom fields. So this is gonna be the component to render the custom fields. So basically in here, we need the content link from Constance. We need all these props. And then, okay, so we're going to receive all these props, and then we render our custom fields, and then we will have a go back button. So for example, if you are creating something, but you want to go back to the model, you can go back with this link. Then we are going to have a batch with the name of the model name. So for example, if our model is post, we are going to display that. So every time you create a new entry, you will know on which model you are creating a new entry. And then the entry title is, if we have title, basically you just render that. If you don't have it, then you create a new, you put like new post or whatever is the model name. This is because we also need this for we are going to use the same files to create and to edit. And I think we can simplify this by doing this, something like this, I guess. If you have title or new get model that model name, you can do that. And then here we render our custom fields. And then remember that for the reconciliation, it's very useful to add a key, and that's why we use the field.id. And then some class names that we are going to like add also depending on some validations. Like if it's an active field, then we need to put like a blue border or something like that. And then if it's required, then we are going to put like a red border to mark that there is an error. So those are divs, and on each click, when you click on those blocks or those divs, you're going to active the specific field that you are working on it. And then basically here you use render field, that field name space, and if it's required, it's going to have this required label. And then after this, we start rendering our types, right? Like if we have a type string, then we are going to render this input, type text, with the name, the unchanged, the disable. This part we don't need it right now. This part is part of the files that we don't have yet. So let's avoid confusion right now. If we have type text, it's going to render a text area for now. Later we are going to improve or like add like a rich editor or like a WYSIWYG where we can render with HTML. So yeah. So that's it for this component. We can save it, and then we need to create now inside content another folder called systemfields.scss. Sorry, the folder is without CSS, and then inside is where you create systemfields.css. Okay, SCSS. Okay. Let me share you the styles. So those are the styles for the system fields. We have some kind of animation on the alert. So the alert is going to be displayed on the button from right to left every time we saved or every time we like publish something or some entry. So that's why here when we show that, we are going to calculate the right. But also I have some breakpoints because I already tested on some different devices, and those are the correct sizes that we need to put in there. Okay, so now let's create the index component for system fields. And let me close the other files. Okay, so on our system fields, basically we just need to include all of these props. For now, this is open. I'm going to remove it. And this part is on the right side. It's like kind of a sidebar. So here we have a system fields. Then we display on a wrapper a block status. And then we have two buttons. The primary button to save. And then here we handle submit the action save. This is the second parameter, if I remember correctly, is for if it's a file. But for now you don't need to pass it. The second button is a success button, and the handle submit is going to publish that entry. Then here we render our system fields, and basically we loop our system fields that map, and then for each one we are going to render just if it's different from ID, because remember that the ID is going to be generated by UUID. And then if we get the updated at, we are going to show last saved instead of updated at. Otherwise, we are going to show the name. Let me put this like here. Well, it's automatically moving this up. Okay, so if it's updated at, we will rename that field or that part for last saved. Otherwise, it's going to render the field name like ID, status, created at, etc. And then here we add some styles using the identifier of the system values, and then if the system values are empty, then we just display an empty style there, and then here we just render the value of that system values using the identifier. And if it's the ID, basically we just return an empty div because we don't want to render ourselves the ID. And then basically here we are going to render the alert. So if it's success, the alert type is going to render on green. If it's danger, means something is wrong, is going to render on red. And that's it for this component. So now you need to go to content and index. And then in here, you need to import the constants, create entry link and edit entry link. Also, you need to import the link component. And then basically here on our primary button plus new entry, we need to replace this button with this. So we are going to point that link to create entry link and the as. And this primary button or any button from fogg-ui, you can pass the link component from the next link, for example. You can pass it as a prop, and internally is going to use it to render the link on each button. So I think that's cool. And also here on the URL, we are going to change that for edit entry link. We are going to do the edit in the next video, I guess, but for now we can like preparing like the scenario for the next video. Okay, and then let's go now. Let me check if on the schema index I have some issue. Handle menu. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now you need to go to constants links, and we need to add the new two constants we have, which is create entry link and edit entry link. So those are going to be one for create and one for edit. Then you need to go to GraphQL values. You need to create the folder values. And then inside, you need to create the mutation create values.mutation.ts. And this is the mutation we are going to use. Oops, sorry, this needs to come from Apollo client. And is create values, and then the values you are going to pass an array or create or update values input, value input. We are going to execute that mutation, and it's going to return the ID, entry, and the value. Now you need to go to pages, dashboard, app ID, stage, model name, section, model. And then you need to import, after the content, you need to import the create component. And you just need to add it to the page, like this, create. And the last change we do, or we need to do, is on shares, styles, bars. And I added a new color on the red pinks that is called fair pink, and this is the color. Okay, so let's test our application to see if it works. Let me remove everything from the database so we can start fresh. True and then false. Okay. Okay, so let me connect now. Santana at dev.education 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We log in. We can create blog. And then I'm going to create the model post. Then let's create a title. This is required. Then a slug. And then a content. Just like that. But probably also an author. Okay. So now we can go to content edit. And here's our table. We don't have data yet, but we can click on new entry. So it's going to render the inputs and the text area. Those are strings, so that's why our inputs. This is a text, that's why it's a text area. And those are required. So if I save or I try to publish, are going to be marked as red and making like it's required. This sidebar on the right is the system fields. These are the status. Created at is the current date. Last save is not published yet because it's not been saved. The status by default is draft. So here we can say my blog post 1, and in here we add the name of the post. Let me refresh. So that when you don't have anything, you have here new post. But once you start writing here, my blog post 1 is changing here. Also, when you click on each element, you see that now I highlight this with blue. So this is the active field that I mentioned you before. And then, for example, here we have an HTML for now. Then the author, Carlos Santana. Okay, so if we save this, now it's saved. The alert is here. Save it. Takes like 3 seconds and then disappears, or should disappear. I will check this problem. Probably it's a CSS issue here. And then now I'm getting here the last saved and the status draft. If I publish this, it's going to change the status to published. So if we go to the model, well, actually it's going to create a new one now that I'm thinking. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. Like in our models, we didn't define that our values are unique. So the problem is that we can allow to create multiples repeated values. In the next videos, we are going to validate that part. But if you see here, I have now my ID, my title, my slug. The content is going to open like a model, like to preview the content in HTML. If you see, I add HTML, but here is rendered with like visually. Here is the created at date, the status. Let's create a new one. And then, yeah, so for example, let's say, I don't know. Well, let's say, okay, you access to JS and education. And then let's copy this image probably. Yeah, I'm not sure. Or let me go to my Twitter, and then this image, let me copy the direction, and I can put like some text, and then here I can inject an image. something like that. And then we publish the entry. And then when we go back here to the content and we see the content here, I mean, I need to like put some max width here, but as you see, is rendering as HTML. So I think that's it for this video. I think I don't want to make this video any longer. Thank you so much for your attention. If you like those videos, please hit the like button and also recommend us our videos to your friends, and subscribe to this new channel. We are close to be 100, so that would be very cool to reach. And remember also, if you have any question, feel free to join to our Slack community. The link is on the description. So thank you so much for your time and see you in the next video. Bye.